Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. This is one of my match reaction shows, my 5 takeaways from Fulham's loss to Aston Villa on Sunday. I will have a full post-match show that we're recording on Monday live. Please feel free to check that out. If you want to listen to this as a podcast, it is exclusive on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. Please do go there, but I do record a live stream on YouTube, and please continue to watch me on YouTube and the shows on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe to Cottage Talk on YouTube. Okay, well, this will be about 15 minutes long. I'm still upset over Fulham's loss yesterday to Aston Villa. Very difficult loss to stomach because I think Fulham had a chance not only to get a point out of this, but to win the match. So looking back, even a day later, just so disappointing. And I'll go through with it in these 15 minutes. And like I said, we'll have a complete post-match show, which I think you're going to want to watch because we have so many things to talk about. This is just 5 takeaways. But my opening thoughts looking back a day later is as I started off, it was there for them. Situations come up beyond the control of the team. We're talking about VAR decisions, questionable decisions in regards to players on the bench, and also questionable decisions on what to do in case you don't have a striker available on the bench. There's a lot to get to, but there were things that were out of their control. But when you look at it, it's just disappointing because it was there for them. It was completely there for them, but issues from last season showed itself. Halftime, coming out of halftime, starting slow, and a team pounces. And unfortunately, they scored 2 quick goals, and the match is over. But you can also talk about situations in the first half, you're up, and you don't build on that, comes back to bite you. It all played itself out during this match. It's a movie I've seen before, and it's disappointing. But there are encouraging signs. There really are. And that's going to start my 5 takeaways. And that's number 5. And it's Josh King. And I said this after the match. Josh King was dynamic in the first half. Completely the best thing I was watching on the pitch was Josh King. Massive future. I have said last season, Tony and I talked about that Marco Silva needs to build a team around Emile Smith-Rowe. Forget about that. He's got to build a team around Josh King. Emile Smith-Rowe, I think, has a massive role to play in Fulham's season and the team moving forward. But Josh King, you should be building around because he is going to be a player that let's hope we can hold on to for several seasons. Created several opportunities. Should have actually had a penalty because of handball. I'll be talking about that. And I have some thoughts also about his yellow card for simulation. I think I've changed my mind on that. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, just so much to look at moving forward with Josh King. And it's just unfortunate that he's been involved in a couple of matches that involved VAR that I think that have not been fair to the player. And like I said, Fulham should have had a penalty. I'll talk about that coming up next. And then, of course, you have what happened in the Chelsea match. Just all of that is negativity, but the positivity in regards to King and his play is obviously anyone that's watched him through the roof. He will be an England international. That will happen. He will be what we would call over here a superstar in not just the Premier League, but world football. It is there for him. You can see it, and anyone that can't see it, that's your problem. And he showed it in this match. And it just continues to show itself. And I think it's only time before he starts scoring goals. And it's only time before others see what Fulham supporters see. Unfortunately, I think a decision to take him off in the second half was the wrong decision by Marco Silva. One of several, to be honest with you. He's a genius, but I think it's fair to question his decisions at times, and I'm going to question that. But that does not take away that my number 5 takeaway was Josh King's dynamic play in the first half, and he should have been rewarded with something, or Fulham should have been rewarded with something. They were not, and that's unfortunate. That's number 5. Number 4, Raul's injury changed the match for Fulham. I think that's obvious looking back at it now, because they score the goal. They're in front early, and if you look at the match as a whole and what Fulham were missing as an outlet, especially holding up the ball, listen, unfortunately, Adama Traore was not going to give that to you. He did all that he could do, but that's just not the type of player that he is. He's a winger. So it had to have changed everything that Fulham were trying to do moving forward, going forward. And it's just too bad. And we're going to have to wait and see if Raul's going to be available for the Bournemouth match. I certainly hope so, because I don't see another solution. They don't have Rodrigo Muniz. It sounds like, based on what Marco's been talking about, he could be out for a bit. So this injury not just changed the match for Fulham, hopefully it doesn't change matches to come as well. Let's hope that it's not too serious and Raul can come straight back into the team, because Fulham missed his presence against Aston Villa. If he can continue to play, do Fulham win the match? We'll never know, but I will just say maybe, because Adama Traore in the striker role didn't really do what I think Raul would have done. So it was a huge loss and changed the match. Number 3, and this is one that I've thought about a great deal. I'm not sure now that it was a dive by Josh King. I went on the full-time show and I was adamant about this because I really hate simulation. I really hate divers. The player that brought me to Fulham, Clint Dempsey, was a terrible diver. And I'll call out Fulham players. I'll call out players from other teams. Mitra was a completely terrible diver. So it always drove me crazy. So when Josh King goes down in this match, at first look, it looked like a complete dive, and I called it on the show. And then I've had a couple of conversations with some Fulham supporters, and I watched it back. And I am now having to rethink my comments from the full-time show, and I'll mention this in the post-match show. Tony Gold brought up a good point. What did I expect Josh King to do? Where was he supposed to go? The only thing when it comes to this situation that he was starting to go down, that is why the ref called for simulation. However, when you look at it, if he just kept going, he might have gotten himself hurt. So was he trying to win a penalty? Was he trying to protect himself? I don't know, but I will just say, to the kid's credit, he's someone that does not seem like someone that would be trying to do something like that for himself. He's a team guy. So I'm going to lean towards that I was wrong on this, and that he was trying to protect himself because he had no other place to go. So I don't think that in the end that this was a dive, and I'll change my mind. I reserve the right to change my mind, and I can be wrong, and I can call myself out on that. So after a second look, after talking to a few people, I'm not sure it was a dive by Josh King. And I can say I was wrong. That's from Happy Days and Fonzie, if anyone's wondering why I did that. Okay, let's go to number 2. And this is a big one. Another changing of the game situation. Fulham deserved a penalty for a handball. Definitely deserved it. I've had a chance to watch that back several times. And Matty Cash's hand stops Josh King's shot from going in the back of the net. That's why the situation with Josh King is even worse, because he should have scored a goal. I truly believe he would have scored here. Martinez wouldn't have gotten to it, I don't think. So for me, this was just wrong by VAR, wrong by the referee, just wrong all the way around. And it happens again to Fulham. And it is just be consistent when it comes to VAR. Be consistent when you're referee. And the inconsistency when it comes to Fulham is just off the charts. It just is. And here we go again. Fulham deserved the penalty. It would have changed the match. Would they have scored on the penalty? I would hope so, but you never know. But they deserved that opportunity to see that through, and they didn't get it. And it changes the match. It totally does. And it's something that I watched it back, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? And it continues to happen against Fulham. I know other team supporters claim it as well, but we now have several that has gone against Fulham early in the season. And it's too bad because I think it would have been a different match if they were rewarded a penalty, but we'll never know. We'll never know. That's why that's my number 2 takeaway. But my number 1 takeaway is about Fulham. And let's give credit to Aston Villa because they took advantage of Fulham's errors, and that's my number 1 takeaway. Fulham's errors were reasons for the loss, plural reasons. Let's start with the defensive errors. The long ball in the first half changed the match, splits the defenders, goes over Anderson's head, and Bassey can't deal with Ollie Watkins, and Ollie Watkins scores. Of course, Ollie Watkins scores against Fulham. And instead of going in the half up 1-0, they go in 1-1, and the match is completely different. And then in the second half, you have the 2 goals in quick succession. And once again, these are goals that are preventable, so they're on Fulham. Credit to Aston Villa for forcing them. Yes, you could say that, but they're errors by Fulham. They're preventable goals. All 3 goals are preventable, in my opinion. So that's on Fulham. For all the praise that I've been giving the defense, these 3 goals, they're going to have to look back at it and think about what happened here and evaluate and try not to do them again. It reminded me a little bit of the West Ham match last season. I was thinking yesterday about the Wolves match too. I mean, these situations, they kill you. And when you play as well as Fulham played in the first half, and then you have these mistakes, it changes everything that has happened in the match. So that's one part of the reason why Fulham lost. The other part I'm going to put on the manager. Yes, he's a genius, as I said at the beginning of the show. But even geniuses can be second-guessed. I'm going to second-guess him right here. First of all, when you don't have a recognized striker on the bench, and then you have a situation with Raul Jimenez, and you're forced to bring on Adama Traore, I'm going to point the finger at Marco Silva. You have a young striker, Jonah from Sweden, on loan from Bayern Munich, and he has not featured at all on the bench since he's come to Fulham. So what is the situation there? What is going on there? I don't know what the answer is. Okay, I really don't. I don't know what the answer is, but for me, it doesn't make sense that you do not have a recognized striker on the bench and you have Rodrigo Muniz out. Someone brought up to me, well, what about Bai, who is playing with the under-21 scoring goals? Why not at least have him on the bench? He would be an option. I agree with that. If you're not going to play Jonah, how about the young under-21 striker that Fulham have right now? It's a good point. Instead of putting Adama Traore, who is not built for that, and changed the match for Fulham. So that's also one of the errors, I think, in judgment with Marco Silva. I'll also say, why is he taking Josh King off? Why is he doing like for like? Why? Why? That, to me, I want to question the decisions for Marco Silva with the substitutions after they score the 2 goals, and we'll talk about this on the post-match show. Tony Gold mentioned to me, why isn't it Marco Silva making the changes right there. And oh, by the way, Emery made a change at halftime, and that changed the match for Aston Villa because Harvey Elliott offered them nothing, and his substitution scored a goal, basically put the game out of reach. So again, when I look back at this loss for Fulham, I see a missed opportunity, and the errors by Fulham's defense and the decisions made by Marco Silva, for me, are the reasons why Fulham lost. I can also talk about VAR and the referee, but that's secondary compared to what Fulham players and then, of course, the manager did. That's why that's my number one takeaway. And we'll go into more detail on the post-match, and I look forward to it because it's always therapeutic doing it. But listen, I just want to thank everyone that watches this live on YouTube and watches it back. But if you want to listen to the podcast, it's exclusive on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. So please do check that out. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. My name is Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.